Regret is a silent thief that robs us of joy, trapping us in an endless cycle of what-ifs and if-onlys. It lingers in the mind like an unwelcome guest, whispering reminders of past mistakes and missed opportunities. But the Stoics, those ancient masters of wisdom, understood that regret is nothing more than a self-inflicted wound, a refusal to accept what cannot be changed. They taught that the past is beyond our control, and to dwell on it is to surrender our present peace to shadow. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, wrote in his Meditations that we must focus not on what has been, but on what we can do now. For the past is immutable, while the present is ours to shape. Seneca too warned that regret is a form of suffering we choose, saying, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." The Stoic path is one of radical acceptance, not resignation, but a clear-eyed embrace of fate, turning every experience, even failure, into fuel for growth. To live without regret is not to live a flawless life, but to live with intention, learning from the past without being enslaved by it. The Stoics practiced amor fati, the love of fate, teaching us to cherish every moment, even the painful ones, as necessary threads in the fabric of our lives. Epictetus, who rose from slavery to become one of history's greatest thinkers, reminded us that it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. This is the essence of Stoic freedom, recognizing that while we cannot control external events, we always control our response. By focusing on what is within our power, our choices, our efforts, our attitudes, we strip regret of its power over us. The past is gone, the future is uncertain, but the present, that is where our strength lies. So let go of what you cannot change, act with virtue today, and walk forward unburdened. The Stoics showed us the way, now it is our turn to live it. Chapter 1. The Weight of Regret and the Stoic Mindset. Regret is a heavy burden, one that shackles the mind to moments that no longer exist. Like an anchor dropped in the past, it prevents us from sailing forward into the present, the only realm where life truly unfolds. The Stoics understood this deeply. They recognized that regret is not just an emotion, but a fundamental misalignment with nature, a refusal to accept the irreversible flow of time. To dwell on what cannot be changed is to wage war against reality itself, and in this battle, we are always defeated. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who ruled Rome at its zenith, confronted this truth in his private writings. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. This stark reflection serves as a mental reset, a way to sever the chains of regret by confronting mortality and reclaiming urgency in the present. Regret arises from a collision between our expectations and reality. We imagine alternate paths, better outcomes, and wiser choices, but these fantasies are illusions. The Stoics believed that such mental projections are not only futile but harmful, as they distort our perception of what is truly within our control. Seneca, the great Stoic tutor, observed that we are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. When we fixate on past mistakes, we amplify their significance, turning minor missteps into lifelong burdens. The truth is, regret gains power only when we feed it with attention. Left alone, it withers. One of the most pervasive forms of regret is the lament over wasted time. People fritter away days, months, even years as if they have an endless supply, only to wake one day and realize how much has slipped through their fingers. Seneca addressed this directly in On the Shortness of Life. You act like mortals in all that you fear and like immortals in all that you desire. We procrastinate, hesitate, and delay, forgetting that time is the one resource we can never replenish. The Stoic antidote is to treat each moment as borrowed, to live with the awareness that every breath could be our last. This is not morbid fixation, but liberation, an understanding that sharpens focus and dissolves regret before it takes root. The Stoics developed practical exercises to free the mind from regret's grip. Among the most powerful is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This practice involves visualizing potential losses, failures, and hardships before they occur, not to induce fear, but to cultivate resilience. Applied to regret, it works like this. If you find yourself tormented by a past decision, ask yourself, what would happen if I continued to dwell on this? Would it change the outcome? Would it improve my present? The answer is always no. The only rational response is acceptance, followed by action. Another essential tool is retrospective reflection, a structured form of journaling that transforms regret into wisdom. The Stoics advised reviewing past events with detachment, not to punish oneself, but to extract lessons. Write down the regret, then dissect it. What did I learn? How has this shaped me? How can I apply this knowledge moving forward? By reframing regret as a teacher rather than a tormentor, we neutralize its emotional weight. Central to Stoic philosophy is the dichotomy of control, the recognition that some things are within our power, our judgments, choices, and actions, while others are not, the past, external events. When regret surfaces, apply this filter. Was this within my control? If yes, assess whether you acted with virtue. If you did, regret is irrational. If you didn't, resolve to do better next time. Actively regret. If the event was beyond your control, release it. Regret over the uncontrollable is like shaking your fist at the rain. It changes nothing but your own peace. The highest Stoic remedy for regret is amor fati, the love of fate. This is not passive resignation, but an active embrace of all that life brings, including our mistakes. Nietzsche, though not a Stoic, captured the spirit of this idea. My formula for greatness is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Every misstep, every failure, every moment we wish we could undo is part of the raw material that shapes us. To wish any of it away is to wish ourselves away, for we are the sum of our experiences. To live without regret is not to live perfectly, but to live fully, present, aligned with reason and virtue. Each morning, the Stoics practiced meditatio, a mental preparation for the day ahead, focusing on what they could control. Each evening, they performed examen, reviewing their actions without self-flagellation. This daily rhythm cultivates a mindset where regret cannot thrive. The choice is yours. Will you let the past dictate your present? Or will you, like the Stoics, rise each day unburdened, ready to act with clarity and purpose? Regret is a shadow. Step into the light of now, and it disappears. Chapter 2. Love, Loss, and Letting Go. The Stoic Way. The human heart is both resilient and fragile, a paradox that defines the emotional experience of love and its inevitable companion, loss. We hold on to memories like lifelines, replaying old conversations, tracing the outlines of moments we wish we could return to. The pain isn't always sharp. It's often a dull, persistent ache, a whisper of what once was, and in that ache we often find ourselves lost. We ask questions that have no answers. What if I had been more present? What if I had done more? What if they had stayed? The Stoics never sought to eliminate love from life. They sought to understand its nature, to engage with it virtuously, and to prepare the soul for its eventual disappearance. Love, for them, was a gift from fate, not a possession. They knew that everything external is on loan: status, health, wealth, even the people we cherish most. Epictetus, who endured slavery and exile, spoke not from cold detachment but from a deep, hard-earned wisdom when he said, "When you are delighted with anything, be it a person, place, or possession, remember to say to yourself, 'I am delighted with something that is not my own.'" That line cuts to the core of what the Stoics understood. All things we love are temporary. Nothing we touch is truly ours, not even the people who once vowed to stay. Modern culture tends to portray love as possession. We talk about my partner, my person, my other half. Language reveals mindset. To the Stoics, this framing would be deeply problematic. It sets us up for inevitable suffering when life, as it always does, takes something or someone away. The Stoic sage loves fully, but without clinging. They embrace the relationship without building their identity upon it. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, wrote tenderly about love even amid the burdens of empire. After losing his wife, Faustina, he didn't spiral into despair. Instead, he turned inward, reminding himself, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. Passion. There is no conflict between passion and stoicism, only between attachment and virtue. To love in the Stoic way is to live with an open heart and open hands, to cherish someone without needing to control them, to be present without expecting permanence. So much of the pain we associate with lost love stems not from the loss itself, but from resistance to the nature of change. Regret festers because we wish the past could be different. We dwell on actions unmade, words unsaid, futures unfulfilled. But Stoicism teaches that regret is a misuse of imagination. Seneca reminds us, "He suffers more than necessary who suffers before it is necessary." In the case of romantic regret, we suffer by clinging to shadows, clinging to versions of events that never truly existed outside our hopes. The Stoic response is not to deny the sorrow, but to transmute it, to examine it, to extract wisdom from it. Ask yourself, is my grief rooted in love or in attachment to a fantasy? Am I mourning the other person or mourning the self-picture I created when I was with them? The first is human, the second is illusion. Every lost love is a teacher, but only if we're willing to learn. A breakup, a divorce, a drifting apart, these can feel like emotional earthquakes. But earthquakes reveal what was unstable to begin with. Love that could not survive difficulty may not have been as solid as we imagined, or perhaps we were not yet the person we needed to be in order to hold it. The Stoics would advise us to turn heartbreak into homework. Journal, reflect, extract principles. Ask not just why did it end, but what virtue did I fail to live by? What part of my character needs strengthening? Maybe it was patience, maybe self-respect, maybe honesty. By framing the end of a relationship as a mirror instead of a wound, we begin to use pain as fuel for growth. We stop being victims of loss and become stewards of transformation. One of the most powerful Stoic exercises is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortune. It is the practice of imagining loss before it happens, not to cultivate paranoia, but to cultivate presence. When applied to love, it becomes revolutionary. To sit with your partner, child, or friend and think, one day this moment will be a memory. One day this person will no longer be here. Far from cold, this mindset awakens gratitude. Suddenly every embrace becomes more sacred, every conversation a gift. To love the Stoic way is not to expect loss, but to live fully in the knowledge that nothing lasts. And that because nothing lasts, it matters more than ever to be kind, to be honest, to be present. This may be the most difficult Stoic truth. You cannot lose what was never truly yours. People come into our lives of their own will and depart of their own fate. The love you experienced was not wasted. The person you loved did not belong to you. They existed in your life for a time, and that time had its purpose. Letting go is not rejection of the past. It is reverence for it. The Stoic does not curse the seasons when they change. They thank the summer for its warmth and embrace the coming autumn with grace. The same applies to love. What was shared is sacred, but it must not be clung to, because clinging turns affection into suffering, turns beauty into bitterness. To let go, in the Stoic sense, is not to forget or suppress, but to rise. It is to say, I loved, I lost, I learned, and I am still here, stronger, wiser, more capable of loving again, not despite the pain, but because of it. In this way, love becomes a sacred discipline, loss becomes a rite of passage, and regret becomes a doorway, not a prison. The Stoics never promised that love wouldn't hurt. They only promised that we would survive it and become more virtuous because of it. In a world obsessed with holding on, they taught the highest form of love. Chapter 3. The Art of Acceptance. To live without regret, we must learn to embrace amor fati, the profound Stoic practice of love of fate. This idea isn't just about tolerating life's events, it's about actively loving them. It's the radical belief that everything, no matter how painful, difficult, or seemingly unlucky, is exactly as it should be. Amor fati asks us to wish for everything that has happened to us, for it to happen again and again, eternally. At first glance, this may sound extreme, even counterintuitive. After all, who would willingly want to relive the hardest moments in life? Who would choose to endure loss, failure, or rejection over and over again? Yet this perspective, however paradoxical, completely dissolves the power that regret has over our lives. When we truly accept that every single experience, whether joyous or tragic, was necessary for our growth, regret can no longer find a foothold. Instead of mourning what has been lost or cursing the obstacles that stood in our way, we begin to see each event as a necessary step along the path to becoming the person we were meant to be. The Stoics, in their pursuit of wisdom and virtue, believe that life is not random nor chaotic. Instead, it operates under a greater logic, an order that we may not fully understand, but can learn to trust. The essence of amor fati is the recognition that life's trials aren't mistakes or misfortunes. They are the sculptor's chisels, shaping us into the best versions of ourselves. Epictetus, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, captured the heart of this concept when he said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them." This insight is the key to understanding how regret holds us hostage. Regret is born from a judgment, often an unconscious one, that the event we regret is inherently negative. But this judgment is a distortion. What if that mistake you made was the very thing that brought you to the wisdom you now possess? What if that heartbreak, while devastating at the time, was the catalyst for personal growth and resilience? The Stoics believed that the only real mistake is failing to learn from experience. In their view, there are no true mistakes, only opportunities for growth that we either embrace or resist. Every moment, every situation, every individual you meet is part of a greater story unfolding. To truly live in alignment with Stoic thought, we must accept that there is no such thing as a wasted experience. Even when life doesn't go according to plan, there is an unspoken logic to it. It may not always be visible in the moment, but in hindsight, we often see how events have prepared us for something greater, something we could not have anticipated. For the Stoic, amor fati transforms suffering into a kind of sacred trust. Trust that everything, even the darkest moments, is part of the divine plan. Imagine the power of saying to yourself, "I wouldn't change a thing. I love my fate exactly as it is." This acceptance doesn't diminish the pain of loss or failure. It doesn't negate the human experience of grief or sadness. But it allows you to view these moments as the necessary ingredients in the recipe of your life. Without the struggle, without the setbacks, you would not be the person you are today. You would not have the wisdom, strength, or character that now defines you. In practice, embracing amor fati means reframing how we view our past experiences. Take a moment to think about your regrets. Perhaps you feel the sting of a missed opportunity, a failed relationship, or a poor decision that altered your life's course. These moments are often where regret takes root, where we wish we could turn back time, reverse the course of history, or make different choices. The Stoic response, however, is not to erase or deny these feelings, but to challenge them. Instead of focusing on what could have been, ask yourself, what has this experience made possible for me? What strength, wisdom, or virtue have I gained from it? To begin integrating amor fati into your life, take some time to reflect on your regrets. This exercise will help shift your mindset from regret to understanding, from suffering to strength. List your top 5 regrets. These might include broken relationships, lost opportunities, mistakes you wish you could undo, or moments of failure that still haunt you. Write them down without judgment. Be honest with yourself. For each regret, identify 3 ways it contributed to your current strength. Perhaps that failed relationship taught you boundaries. Maybe that job loss pushed you toward your true passion. Reflect deeply and see how each regret, rather than harming you, has played a role in shaping the person you've become today. Write a thank you letter to your past self. Address your past self with compassion and gratitude. Thank them for having the courage to live through those experiences, for facing those challenges, and for learning the hard lessons along the way. Express gratitude for the growth they have allowed you to experience, knowing that each step was necessary for your journey. This exercise, though simple, can be transformative. It invites you to step back from your immediate emotions and view your past through the lens of Stoic wisdom. Instead of viewing past mistakes as a burden, you begin to see them as a teacher, a vital part of the process of your becoming. The Stoic philosopher would never wish to erase the scars of their past because they recognize that those scars are proof of survival, proof of resilience, proof that they have overcome challenges and come out the other side stronger. Like a sculptor who chisels away at marble to reveal the statue within, your experiences, both joyous and painful, are the forces that shape you into the masterpiece of your own life. The Stoic heart learns to love fate because it recognizes that every step, whether seemingly positive or negative, is essential for its growth. In the end, Amor Fati teaches us that nothing happens by accident. The job you lost, the relationship that ended, the illness you faced, the disappointment that bruised your ego. These are not tragedies. They are the clay in which your best self is being formed. By embracing them, by loving them, you free yourself from the grip of regret. As you begin to cultivate this mindset, you realize that amor fati does not mean resignation. It does not mean settling for mediocrity or abandoning your dreams. Instead, it is an active, dynamic engagement with life, one where you accept the full spectrum of experience and find joy in the unfolding. It is a profound act of love for the life you are living, not in spite of its imperfections, but because of them. Chapter 4. The illusion of control. Regret, in many ways, is a symptom of our deep desire to control the uncontrollable. We replay events in our minds, imagining how things could have unfolded differently, wishing we could turn back time and fix what was broken. The Stoics, with their remarkable clarity of thought, understood that much of human suffering, especially the pain of regret, stems from this very illusion of control. They believed that reality could be divided into two categories: what we control and what we don't. What we control are our judgments, decisions, and actions, the internal realm of thought and behavior. What we don't control are the external circumstances, the actions of others, and most notably, the past. Obsessing over the uncontrollable, such as wishing we could change what happened yesterday, is not only futile, it's irrational. Regretting the past, lamenting what has already occurred, is as illogical as regretting yesterday's weather. The weather, like the past, is beyond our power to change. It is an uncontrollable force of nature, and attempting to reshape it is a waste of energy. Likewise, when we focus on what we cannot change, whether it's a failed relationship, a missed opportunity, or a wrong decision, we become enslaved to the past, bound by an illusion of control that doesn't exist. The Stoics' wisdom teaches that real freedom lies in the acceptance of what we cannot control. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, repeatedly reminded himself that he had no power over the world's events or the actions of others. He could not dictate what others would do or say, nor could he control the twists and turns of fate. But what he could control was how he responded to these events, how he chose to perceive them, and what actions he decided to take in the present moment. This acceptance is not defeat, it is liberation. The Stoic path involves the radical acceptance of our limitations, acknowledging that the past is irreversible, and that there are forces beyond our grasp. Only then can we begin to focus on what truly matters, the present moment, the choices we make now, and the internal state we cultivate in response to life's unfolding drama. One of the most powerful ways to combat regret and the desire for control is to engage in a practical exercise designed to help us differentiate between what is within our control and what is not. This exercise not only helps us release the burden of regret, but also redirects our energy toward more productive, empowering actions. Here's how you can begin. Identify a current regret. Choose something that's been weighing on your mind. It could be an unresolved situation from the past, a relationship that ended badly, a decision you wish you had made differently, or an opportunity you missed. Whatever it is, bring it into your awareness. Don't rush through this. Take your time to really reflect on it. Draw two columns, controllable versus uncontrollable. On a piece of paper, create two columns. Label one controllable and the other uncontrollable. For each regret you've identified, Write down what aspects of it you can control and what aspects are beyond your control. For example, if you regret a failed relationship, perhaps you could control your response to the situation, forgiveness, letting go, but not the actions or choices of the other person. Similarly, if you regret a missed career opportunity, you cannot change the past decision, but can control how you move forward in your professional life now. For the uncontrollable elements, practice release. In the uncontrollable column, you'll likely find elements that belong to fate's domain, things that are beyond your power to alter. Here, the Stoic advice is simple: release them. Acknowledge that these aspects are part of a greater whole, and your attachment to them only keeps you tethered to something that is gone. With each uncontrollable element, remind yourself this is fate's domain. The past is over, and no amount of regret will change it. Accepting this brings peace and freedom, as you no longer waste energy fighting the unchangeable. For the controllable, ask, what action can I take now? In the controllable column, identify what you can do right now to address the situation, improve the outcome, or ensure future growth. What is within your power to change today? Regret often arises from a sense of powerlessness, but by focusing on action, you shift your mindset from helplessness to agency. For instance, if you regret not taking a particular career path, ask yourself, what can I do right now to start pursuing that passion, even if in small steps? Can I educate myself further, reach out to others in the field, start a project on my own? This exercise helps us confront our regrets in a productive way by shifting our focus away from what is beyond our control and focusing on what we can influence in the present moment. It reminds us that we are not powerless victims of fate. Rather, we are active participants in shaping our future, one decision at a time. Another Stoic technique that helps diminish the power of regret in perspective is called the view from above. The Stoics believed in cultivating a broader, more detached perspective on life, one that sees our individual struggles in the context of the vastness of time and space. When we become too enmeshed in our personal dramas, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. We feel like our regrets are enormous, that they define us. But the view from above allows us to zoom out and gain a more expansive view. To use this technique, take a moment to imagine yourself looking down at your life from a higher vantage point, perhaps from space. Imagine seeing your entire life unfolding as though it were a story written in the stars. From this perspective, your regrets shrink to their true size. What once seemed like an insurmountable obstacle becomes a small moment in the greater narrative of your life. Now, zoom out further. Picture the world in 100 years, when you and everyone involved in your current regrets will no longer be around. Will your regret matter? Will it have any lasting impact on the grand sweep of human history? Will it matter to the generations that come after? Likely not. The purpose of this exercise is to remind us that while our regrets feel intensely personal and significant in the moment, they are small in the grand scope of things. This perspective can be liberating. It helps us recognize that regret, when viewed from this larger context, is fleeting. The Stoics teach us that freedom lies in recognizing the limits of our control. We cannot control the past, and we cannot dictate the actions of others. We can, however, control how we respond to the present moment. By embracing this truth and focusing on what is within our power to change, we free ourselves from the prison of regret. We stop chasing the illusion of control over things that are beyond our reach, and we redirect our energy toward the things we can shape: our actions, our judgments, and our responses. By adopting the view from above, we also gain a sense of detachment that allows us to put our regrets in their proper place. They are not the defining features of our lives. They are merely transient moments in a much larger story. When we see our regrets for what they truly are, temporary, insignificant blips in the flow of time, we gain the freedom to let them go. Regret, like so many emotions, is a construct of the mind. By focusing on what we can control, letting go of what we cannot, and viewing our lives from a broader perspective, we free ourselves from the false importance of regret. We can then step forward into the future not as prisoners of our past, but as empowered individuals shaping their own destinies. Chapter 5. The courage to act. The essence of regret often lies not in the actions we've taken, but in those we've failed to take. The path of inaction is laden with missed opportunities, unanswered questions, and lives left unlived. Most of us, at one time or another, have hesitated to act, whether out of fear, uncertainty, or doubt, and that hesitation has planted seeds of regret deep within us. But the Stoics understood something profound about human nature. The antidote to regret is not reflection, but action. Action in the present moment. Action regardless of how imperfect or uncertain it might feel. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, offers us a timeless reminder. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. This simple yet powerful statement calls us to stop ruminating on the theoretical and start living the reality of our value. It urges us to act, to be present, and to make decisions, no matter how difficult or uncertain they may seem. The regret of inaction is insidious because it often goes unnoticed until it has already accumulated over time. We convince ourselves that the right moment will come, that we just need more time, more clarity, or more preparation. But the Stoics knew that waiting for the perfect moment is a fallacy. Perfection is an illusion. The moment we are in, the choices we face, and the actions we can take right now are the only things that truly matter. Every second spent in indecision is a second that slips away from us, one that we cannot recover. Time, as Marcus Aurelius reminded us, is the most precious resource we have. To squander it in hesitation is to deny ourselves the possibility of growth, the chance to improve, and the opportunity to embrace life fully. Fear is the root cause of much inaction. We fear failure, rejection, criticism, and uncertainty. These fears hold us hostage, preventing us from taking the first step toward our goals, dreams, and desires. But the Stoics saw fear for what it truly is, a mental construct that we can dismantle through rational thought. They didn't deny that fear exists, but they emphasized the importance of understanding its nature and not letting it control us. By acting despite our fears, we break free from their hold, making room for courage, growth, and resilience. Courage, in the Stoic sense, is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to move forward despite it. It is the act of deciding to take the first step, knowing that we cannot control the outcome, but can control our response. One of the most effective ways to break free from the paralysis of inaction is to confront our fears head-on, and the Stoics had a powerful practice for doing so. Seneca's concept of fear setting. This exercise, when done honestly and thoroughly, helps us separate the imagined dangers from the real risks, allowing us to make decisions with greater clarity and courage. The Stoics believed that by breaking down our fears into manageable components, we could see them for what they truly are, exaggerated, often irrational, and rarely as insurmountable as we imagine. Here's how you can use the fear-setting exercise to overcome inaction and free yourself from the grip of regret. Write down a decision you're avoiding. Identify something you've been putting off. It could be anything. Starting a new project, having a difficult conversation, pursuing a personal goal, or taking a leap of faith in your career. This is the decision you are avoiding. Write it down on paper to bring it into your conscious awareness. Next, list all the worst-case scenarios you fear could happen if you take action. Be as honest and as detailed as possible. Don't sugarcoat anything. Write down your fears, no matter how extreme they seem. For example, if you're afraid to start a new business, you might write, "I'll lose all my savings, I'll be embarrassed, I'll disappoint my family." How likely is it, actually? In this step, we begin to challenge the irrationality of our fears. Are the worst-case scenarios as likely as we think? Often, when we take the time to assess the probability of these outcomes, we realize that they are either unlikely or even highly improbable. How would you recover if it happened? In the second part of the exercise, ask yourself, what would happen if the worst-case scenario came true? How would you recover? This is where you realize that even the worst outcomes are not as devastating as we once feared. There are always ways to rebuild, learn, and adapt. Often, the fear of failure is greater than the failure itself. This step forces us to confront the resilience within us, the ability to bounce back, to adapt, and to learn from setbacks. Now, list the potential benefits of action. Focus on what could go right. What are the potential rewards, both tangible and intangible, if you take the leap? Write them down. This could be personal growth, financial success, deeper relationships, increased confidence, or simply the satisfaction of taking action. When we see the benefits clearly, we realize that inaction is far more dangerous than any risk we might face by acting. By the time you've completed this exercise, you'll likely discover a few key insights. Your fears are exaggerated. Often the worst-case scenarios we imagine are based on distorted perceptions and exaggerated possibilities. The fear of failure, rejection, or loss tends to loom larger in our minds than it is in reality. By laying out these fears in black and white, we can see how unlikely or manageable they really are. Even the worst case is manageable. The exercise helps us realize that the worst possible outcome is rarely as catastrophic as we've imagined. Most setbacks are temporary, and we can recover from them with time and effort. This shift in perspective lessens the power fear has over us and empowers us to take action anyway. The potential rewards far outweigh risks. By focusing on the benefits of taking action, we see that the rewards often far exceed the risks. Every step forward, no matter how small, has the potential to bring us closer to our goals, even if the path is uncertain. The Stoics taught that it's better to take action and learn from experience than to sit paralyzed in indecision. Regret, at its core, is about wishing we had acted sooner, wishing we had taken risks when the opportunity presented itself. The antidote to regret is to cultivate the courage to act in the present. The Stoics didn't wait for perfect conditions to make a decision or take a step forward. They understood that inaction only compounds fear and regret, whereas action builds confidence and clarity. The key is to start. It doesn't matter how small the action is. What matters is that you choose to move forward. Take one step, make one decision, and trust that each action, no matter how imperfect, will lead you toward growth and away from regret. The Stoics remind us that life is not about avoiding mistakes, but about learning from them and continually choosing to act, even in the face of uncertainty. In the end, the courage to act is what sets us free from the bonds of regret. When we act decisively and without fear, we open ourselves up to a life of growth, resilience, and fulfillment, one step at a time. Chapter 6. Present Moment Mastery. Regret is the shadow of yesterday cast over today. It's the mind turning backward, replaying old scenes, rehearsing better lines, grasping for control over what has already slipped through our fingers. And yet the Stoics taught with unwavering clarity, the past is not yours anymore. It's not a place you can return to, nor a reality you can reshape. What is yours, what has always been and will always be within your reach, is the present moment, this breath, this step, this choice. They knew what many still struggle to understand, that the present, however fleeting, is the only space in which life actually occurs. Everything else is either a memory or a fantasy. Everything else is, in essence, an illusion. Epictetus, the slave-turned-philosopher, said it plainly. There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will. And nothing lies more firmly beyond our will than the past. The past is a graveyard of events, beautiful and brutal, meaningful and mundane, but it is done. To ruminate over it endlessly is like trying to change a painting by shouting at it. Yet we do this all the time, don't we? We relive conversations, dissect decisions, and rewrite scenarios in our minds as if our present energy could fix a past mistake. But this mental theater only deepens our suffering. The Stoics remind us that it's not what happened that hurts us, it's how we relate to what happened. It's our interpretation, our attachment, our refusal to accept. To master the present moment, then, is not just a Stoic ideal, it is emotional liberation. It is the antidote to regret, the solvent that dissolves guilt and resentment. And like all great inner transformations, it begins with intention. The first practice the Stoics encourage is morning priming, a conscious declaration upon waking, "Today is all I have. I will live it fully." This is not just motivational fluff, it's a psychological anchor. It's a way of setting the compass of your mind toward awareness rather than autopilot. By reminding yourself at the start of each day that this is the only moment you own, You short-circuit the habitual longing for some imagined future or haunted past. You step into the now with reverence, ready to engage it fully. But presence doesn't happen by accident. It must be cultivated like a muscle. That's why the Stoics practiced evening journaling, a methodical review of the day, not to self-punish, but to self-reflect. Seneca once said, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said." Each evening, take a few quiet moments and write down 3 things. One thing you did well, one thing you learned, and one thing you'll aim to improve tomorrow. This simple act is profound. It keeps your attention tethered to real, lived experience. It shifts your energy from shame to growth, from passivity to intentionality. You stop seeing each day as a blur and begin to treat it as a building block of character, a sacred step in the journey of becoming. Still, even with the best intentions, regret can ambush us. It arrives without warning, in moments of stillness or stress, whispers of failure, echoes of what could have been. In these moments, the Stoics recommend a subtle but powerful tool: the breath. The breath is your anchor to now. When the mind begins to spiral into rumination, return to your breathing. Take 5 deep, deliberate breaths. Inhale slowly through the nose, feeling the rise of your chest. Exhale through the mouth, releasing the tension from your jaw, your shoulders, your racing thoughts. These 5 breaths are more than air, they are reclaiming. They pull your awareness out of the storm of regret and root you in the calm of presence. You are reminded that life continues, not in the memory, not in the fantasy, but right here, right now, in the rhythm of your own breath. The Stoics also employed visualization as presence training. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about life in terms of impermanence and cosmic scale. He imagined himself as a tiny fragment of time, a breath in the universe. This wasn't nihilism, it was liberation. When you visualize your life from a higher vantage point, zooming out from your immediate problems to see yourself as a single thread in the vast tapestry of existence, your regrets shrink. Your mistakes no longer feel monumental. You recognize the futility of fixating on them. You see that this very moment, with all its imperfections, is still part of the sacred unfolding. And this awareness doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. Because once you stop trying to change the unchangeable, you can focus your full energy on what matters, how you choose to live now. And that is the ultimate promise of present moment mastery. It returns your power. It turns regret from a tormentor into a teacher. It reveals that every second you spend reliving the past is a second stolen from the life you could be creating. It shows you that happiness is not found in fixing your history, but in fully embracing your presence. The Stoics never denied emotion, never dismissed loss, but they refused to be ruled by ghosts. They trained themselves to live with open eyes, full hearts, and grounded awareness, and in doing so, they found a freedom deeper than pleasure and more enduring than success. So let your regrets rise if they must, but meet them not with shame or sorrow, but with silence and breath. Let them pass through you like a cold wind through open windows. Let them remind you of what you've lived and how far you've come, and then gently return to now. Return to your life, because this is where your story continues. Not in the ruins behind you, but in the road under your feet, the sun on your skin. Chapter 7. Emotional Alchemy. The Stoics are often misunderstood as cold or emotionally detached, but nothing could be further from the truth. They did not aim to erase emotion, nor did they fear it. Rather, they sought to understand it, to harness it, and ultimately to transform it. Stoicism is not about suppression, it is about transmutation. Like skilled alchemists of the inner world, the Stoics turned leaden emotions into golden virtues. A few emotions cry out more urgently for this transformation than regret. Regret, when left unchecked, becomes a corrosive force. It eats away at our peace, poisons our self-perception, and binds us to a version of ourselves that no longer exists. But Stoic wisdom offers an alternative. Instead of being crushed under the weight of regret, we can use it as fuel. Regret, at its core is emotional energy, and energy can be redirected. It can be forged into motivation, clarity, and strength. Seneca taught no tree becomes rooted and sturdy unless many winds blow against it. Our regrets are those winds, uncomfortable, even violent at times, but ultimately essential for deep growth and enduring character. The secret is learning how to face the storm, not flee from it. The first step in this emotional alchemy is naming the regret clearly and specifically. Vague regret, "I've messed up so much," or "I'm not who I should be," has no shape, no handle to grasp. It remains a fog in the mind, seeping into everything without ever being resolved. The Stoics taught us to deal in truth, not illusions. So bring your regret into focus. What exactly are you grieving? A lost opportunity? A broken relationship? Time you wasted in fear or indecision? Write it down. Speak it aloud. Strip it of drama and see it for what it is. An event that occurred, one thread in the larger fabric of your life. Next, identify the core emotion hiding beneath the regret. Is it shame? The painful belief that you are fundamentally flawed? Is it guilt, the knowledge that your actions hurt others? Is it grief, the sorrow over something or someone that is gone? The Stoics did not believe in denying these feelings. On the contrary, they believed in engaging them fully and consciously. When Marcus Aurelius mourned the death of loved ones, he did not command himself not to grieve. He simply reminded himself that grief, like all things, was part of the natural order. "All is ephemeral," he wrote. "Fame and the famous as well." Naming the emotion allows us to meet it with compassion, not avoidance. And once we do that, we can begin the work of transformation. Now ask the critical Stoic question, what can I do with this emotion? Not how can I erase it or how can I forget, but rather, how can I convert this feeling into something useful? Regret by nature is backward-looking, but energy, once redirected, can only move forward. So consider, what constructive action can this energy now support? For example, if your regret stems from wasted time, allow that sorrow to awaken a renewed urgency in how you live today. Let it light a fire under your daily discipline. Every hour you commit to purposeful work becomes a silent victory over past passivity. If your regret involves harsh words spoken, use the pain of that memory to fuel a deeper intention to speak more kindly now, to listen more carefully, to respond with grace, to repair relationships where possible. If your regret is tied to a relationship you neglected, let it become the root of your current attentiveness and appreciation for those who remain. If you feel regret for playing small, for not pursuing your dreams or standing up for yourself, let that pain become a warrior's resolve to seize the next opportunity, to speak boldly, to live without hesitation. This is the alchemy. This is how Stoics build virtue from pain. They do not wait for healing to come passively. They extract meaning actively. Each regret becomes a tool for sculpting the better self. It's important to note that this transformation is not instantaneous. It is not a matter of thinking positively and moving on. Rather, it is a process, a ritual of reflection, acceptance, redirection, and renewed action. It is something you return to again and again, especially when the old ghosts return. But with time and practice, you begin to see regret not as a burden, but as a guidepost. You no longer fear it. You welcome it, examine it, and extract from it the essence of growth. In this way, the Stoic is not someone who feels less, but someone who feels differently. They do not get lost in emotion, nor do they deny it. They ride its currents, steering it toward purpose. And when others drown in sorrow or guilt, the Stoic stands firm, not unfeeling but unshaken, because they have done the work to transform feeling into fuel. So take your regrets, however many, however sharp, and place them before you like raw material. You are the craftsman, you are the fire, you are the forge. With courage and clarity, begin shaping them, not into chains that bind you to the past, but into wings that lift you toward the future. Chapter 8. The Alchemy of Action, transmuting the lead of regret into the gold of progress. Regret is perhaps the most psychologically complex emotion we experience as human beings. Unlike simple sadness or anger, regret contains a unique dual nature. It is simultaneously backward-looking in its origins, yet forward-pointing in its implications. The ancient Stoics, those master psychologists of the classical world, recognized this dual quality and developed what we might call a technology of transformation for converting the heavy weight of regret into the forward momentum of purposeful living. This chapter will serve as your comprehensive guide to this transformative process. At its most fundamental level, regret represents an important evolutionary adaptation. Neuroscientific research has shown that the same regions of the brain that process physical pain, particularly the anterior cingulate cortex, become activated when we experience regret. This isn't mere coincidence. Nature has designed regret to be psychologically painful precisely because that discomfort serves as a powerful motivator for behavioral change. The Stoics anticipated this biological insight by 2 millennia when they framed regret not as a punishment, but as a teacher. The first step in working with regret is understanding its various manifestations. Clinical psychologists generally categorize regret into 2 primary types: the regret of commission, wishing we hadn't done something, and the regret of omission, wishing we had done something. The Stoic approach handles these differently. For regrets of commission, they prescribe what we might call redressive action, not merely feeling bad about what was done, but taking concrete steps to make amends where possible. For regrets of omission, they advocated compensatory action, not dwelling on missed opportunities, but creating new ones. Marcus Aurelius left us perhaps the most concise formulation of this approach in his Meditations. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This paradoxical statement contains profound wisdom. The very things we regret, our mistakes, our missed chances, our wrong turns, become the raw materials for our growth when we approach them with the right mindset. A modern psychological term for this is post-traumatic growth. But the Stoics were articulating this concept long before it had a name. Let us examine the 3-stage Stoic framework for regret transformation in greater depth. The amendment process. This is for regrets involving harm done to others. The Stoics were adamant that mere guilt without corrective action was useless. Instead, they prescribed a systematic approach. First, clearly identify the specific harm caused. Second, determine what form of amends would be meaningful. This might be an apology, restitution, or changed behavior. Third, execute this amends promptly and without expectation of forgiveness. The focus is on the integrity of the effort rather than the outcome. The pivot principle. For regrets of inaction, the Stoics recommended what we might call the 1% solution. The idea is to take some small but concrete action toward the neglected priority within 24 hours of recognizing the regret. If you regret not pursuing education, enroll in a single class. If you regret a strained relationship, send a brief message. The psychological impact of this is profound. It breaks the paralysis of rumination by proving to yourself that change is possible. Wisdom extraction and transmission. For regrets where direct amendment or compensation isn't possible, perhaps the other person has passed away or the opportunity window has closed, the Stoics developed a sophisticated method of alchemical transformation. This involves 3 steps. First, articulate the precise lesson learned. Second, find ways to apply that lesson in your current life. Third, teach that lesson to others who might benefit. In this way, what was once a source of pain becomes a source of wisdom. Seneca's 24-hour rule represents one of the most practical applications of Stoic regret work. The principle is simple but powerful. When you notice regret arising, you have 1 day to identify and execute some concrete action that addresses its lesson. This creates what psychologists call closure, a sense that the matter has been dealt with rather than left open-ended. The action need not be grand. In fact, small, achievable actions are often more effective because they prove that progress is possible. Consider the case of James, a 42-year-old accountant who came to regret not pursuing his interest in music. For years, he beat himself up about this failure until he encountered Stoic principles. Applying the 24-hour rule, he signed up for guitar lessons the next day. 2 years later, he was playing in a community orchestra. His regret didn't disappear, but it transformed from a source of pain to a source of motivation. The physiological impact of this approach is noteworthy. Brain imaging studies show that when people take concrete action to address regrets, activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, decreases, while activity in the prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and decision-making, increases. Essentially, action shifts us from emotional reactivity to purposeful engagement, exactly the transition the Stoics advocated. For those dealing with particularly entrenched regrets, I recommend the Regret Transformation Worksheet. This tool, inspired by Stoic journaling practices, involves precise identification of the regret: when, what, why; categorization or omission; current impact, how it affects you now; possible actions, amend, pivot, or teach. First step: commitment, specific, time-bound. Research from positive psychology shows that people who complete such exercises experience significantly reduced regret intensity and increased sense of control. The Stoics would say this makes perfect sense. We are, by nature, action-oriented beings, and it is through action that we reclaim our agency. Epictetus offered a beautiful metaphor for this process. No tree becomes rooted and sturdy unless many winds blow against it. Our regrets are those winds. They feel uncomfortable in the moment, but they're what help us grow strong. The key is not to avoid the winds, but to learn how to stand firm in them. Modern therapeutic approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, have essentially rediscovered these ancient Stoic principles. The common thread is the understanding that while we can't change the past, we can change our relationship to it through purposeful action in the present. This is what makes the Stoic approach to regret so powerful. It's not about positive thinking, but about positive doing. As you work with these principles, remember that the goal isn't to eliminate regret entirely. That would be neither possible nor desirable. Regret serves an important function in our moral and psychological development. The aim is rather to transform regret from a crippling burden into a motivating force. When we do this, we fulfill the Stoic ideal of turning obstacles into advantages. Your assignment is this: identify one long-standing regret and apply the full Stoic treatment to it. First, categorize it. Then, determine which of the three approaches, amendment, pivot, or wisdom transmission, fits best. Next, design a concrete action step. Finally, and this is crucial, execute that step within 24 hours. This is how we break regret's spell and reclaim our forward momentum. As the Stoics love to say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Chapter 9. The Mirror of Mortality. Memento Mori. The Stoic Art of Living by Remembering Death. There is a silence that comes not from absence, but from awe. A quiet realization that all things, including ourselves, are temporary. This is the silence that falls upon the mind when we fully contemplate Memento Mori. Remember, you must die. Far from being a grim reminder, this ancient Stoic principle was seen as a compass, a source of deep clarity, and one of the most profound tools for living without regret. To the Stoics, death wasn't something to fear. It was a mirror, harsh, honest, and yet liberating. In its reflection, we see our life stripped of illusion, and in that moment, everything falls away. We move through life as if time is a limitless currency, spent carelessly, as though more will always be available. We postpone joy, we delay reconciliation, we defer dreams, assuming tomorrow will always arrive and that later will always be an option. But mortality whispers otherwise. It reminds us that someday is not a guarantee. It's a comforting lie we tell ourselves to avoid change. And so, the Stoics insisted, do not wait to be shaken by tragedy to start living deliberately. Let death become your daily teacher, not your final surprise. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, knew better than most how short and uncertain life truly is. Despite commanding armies and ruling over millions, he wrote with humble urgency, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." This wasn't theatrical pessimism, it was a powerful call to action, a refusal to waste the present on triviality and complaint. Memento Mori wasn't meant to paralyze, it was meant to prioritize. A life audit. Wake up before it's too late. Let us bring this lesson into the practical. One of the most powerful Stoic exercises is the life audit, a conscious confrontation with our mortality, not to frighten but to focus. Imagine this. You are told truthfully that you have just 1 year left to live, not because you're ill or punished, but because this is the time left in your story. What then becomes important? Ask yourself, what 3 things would become your top priorities? What 3 things would you immediately stop doing? Who would you forgive? Who would you call? What would you create? What have you always said you would do one day? Would that day finally be today? Now, with those answers clear in your mind, compare them to your actual daily life. Are your values aligned with your actions? Are you living with urgency or drifting through habit? The gap between these two is the breeding ground of regret. Seneca, in On the Shortness of Life, pulled no punches when he said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." He argued that most people don't live, they merely exist. They are alive in body but asleep in soul, numbed by routine and distracted by triviality. Death, to Seneca, was not the great thief. Squandered life was. Why do we resist Memento Mori? Because it threatens our illusions. We want permanence, we want guarantees, but life offers no such luxuries. The more we resist this truth, the more we suffer. The Stoics believed that the true enemy is not death, but fear of death, and worse, the paralysis that fear creates. By contrast, those who regularly contemplate death are not morbid, they are alive. They are urgent but not rushed, focused but not frantic, and most importantly, they are courageous. Because once you no longer fear the end, you become free to begin. You act, you speak truth, you love fully, without conditions. You risk failure because you understand the greater failure is to never try at all. The person who wakes up each day aware that it could be their last is not burdened. They are liberated. Their choices are intentional. Their time is sacred. Their regrets are few. Regret cannot survive the fire of true presence. When we understand that time is fleeting, we stop replaying old mistakes and start asking, how can I live better now? Regret is always backward-looking. Memento Mori is forward-facing. It demands that we use the lessons of the past but never dwell in it. The past cannot be changed, but the present is always within reach. And it is in the present that we shape our legacy. When we zoom out, far beyond the small dramas and self-centered narratives of daily life, we begin to see our existence in proper scale. The Stoics used the view from above, a technique of imagining oneself from space, watching one's life unfold as a mere blip in cosmic time. When you adopt this lens, your regrets shrink. That missed opportunity, that failed relationship, that embarrassing mistake, they dissolve into perspective. What matters is what you do with the time remaining. Every day that passes is one day less. We are not waiting for death. We are moving toward it with each breath. The Stoic does not flinch at this. They prepare for it. They make peace with it. And in doing so, they live more fully than those who pretend they have forever. So make your life an answer to death. Speak now. Forgive now. Create now. Choose love, courage, and clarity now. Not tomorrow. Not some now. As the Stoics teach us, death is not the opposite of life. It is the measure of it. When we use death as our mirror, we don't become obsessed with endings, we become obsessed with meaning. Let your days be intentional. Let your actions echo what you truly value. Let your life be such that when death comes, it finds you not afraid, but ready. The Stoics never promised us a life free from pain, error, or misstep. They knew better. They knew that human life is messy, unpredictable, and full of contradictions. What they offered instead was something far more enduring and powerful, a way to live meaningfully in spite of, and even because of, those flaws. They didn't preach perfection. They taught transformation. Your regrets, they're not blemishes on your record. They are footnotes in your manual of growth, milestones on your path toward self-realization. Every tear shed, every wrong turn taken, every door slammed shut, these are not indicators of failure. They are lessons encoded in your experience, carved into your memory to make you wiser, deeper, and more compassionate. As Seneca said, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Your regrets are not weights to carry in sorrow. They are resistance to build your inner strength. They are the fires that temper your character. They are the cracks through which deeper understanding emerges. If you've made mistakes, and who hasn't, let the Stoics reassure you, you are not broken. You are in progress. You are mid-journey. The Stoic path isn't about eliminating emotion or erasing your past sins. It's about reclaiming your agency, learning from what has been, and moving forward with grace, integrity, and intention. You are the artist of your life. Imagine your life as a vast sculpture. The chisel marks, your regrets, mistakes, and heartbreaks are not flaws in the art. They are what shape it. Without them, there is no texture, no depth, no story. Every painful moment has contributed to the wisdom you now hold. The only real tragedy would be to waste that wisdom by ignoring it. And that brings us to a final truth. The only true regret is to live without learning, to come to the edge of life and realize you never truly lived, to know what courage, love, or presence meant, but never practice them. Don't let that be your story. The torch is now in your hands. As you close this chapter, carry this truth with you. You are not helpless. You are not stuck. The tools of the Stoics, amor fati, memento mori, present moment mastery, are now yours. They are timeless because they are universal. They will not prevent hardship, but they will give you the strength to rise from it. Every morning you have a choice. Repeat the past or redeem it. The path is clear. The power is yours. Your next moment can be a declaration. I will no longer be ruled by regret. I will live deliberately. I will use every drop of pain and joy to carve a better version of myself. Choose boldly, live bravely, look forward, not back. A final invitation. If this journey through Stoic wisdom has moved you, challenged you, or inspired you in any way, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe, not just to support this content, but to join a growing community of people reclaiming their lives from regret and forging a life of depth, courage, and clarity. Subscribe to stay connected, like to affirm the message, share with someone who needs to hear this. The Stoic path doesn't end here. It begins now with your next choice. So walk forward with eyes open, heart steady, and mind sharpened by wisdom. No more regret.